The worst Christmas gift I ever received was not something wrapped in a box. It was the moment I realized my own family saw my $9 million more clearly than they saw me. I still remember the sound of Christmas music playing softly in my sister's living room that evening. The lights were glowing, the table was covered with homemade dishes, and everyone was laughing like we were the same close family we had always been. For years, Christmas had been the one time when I believed all the old misunderstandings could disappear. It was Emily Carter, and I had always been the person in my family who tried to keep everyone connected. He brought the gifts. He remembered birthdays. He showed up when someone needed help. He never wanted anyone to feel alone because I knew what it felt like to quietly carry things by yourself. That was why, when I walked into my sister Jessica's home that Christmas, I believed I was walking into a celebration of family. He had no idea I was walking into a conversation that would change how I saw everyone around me. My younger sister Jessica greeted me with a big smile and a hug. She complimented my coat and told me how happy she was that everyone could finally be together. At that moment, everything felt normal. He placed my gifts under the tree and sat down with my family. My parents were there, along with relatives I had known my entire life. The conversations were familiar. People talked about vacations, work, and plans for the new year. Then, after dinner, Jessica suggested that everyone stay seated because she wanted to talk about something important. He noticed the room became quieter. She looked at me and smiled. At first, I thought she was about to thank me for always supporting the family. He thought maybe she wanted to share a memory or express appreciation. Instead, she said something I never expected to hear. Emily, now that we know about your money, I think it is time we talk about what you are going to do for the family. For a moment, I did not understand what she meant. He looked around the table, waiting for someone to laugh or tell me it was a misunderstanding. But nobody did. Jessica continued explaining that because I had more than enough, it only made sense for me to help everyone with their financial goals. She spoke as if my success was something the whole family automatically owned. My parents nodded quietly. A few relatives agreed that family members should support each other. He sat there listening, feeling a strange emptiness. It was not because Jessica wanted help. Helping family was something I had done many times before. What hurt was the way she spoke about it. There was no curiosity about how I built my life. No questions about the years I spent working, saving, and making careful decisions. They only saw the final number. They saw the $9 million, but they did not see the woman behind it. The truth was, I had never lived like someone with that kind of money. He still preferred simple things. He still cooked my own meals. He still compared prices at the grocery store. He never wanted wealth to change who I was. But that night, I realized something painful. Though my family, my money had become more important than my story. Jessica leaned forward and said, "You know we are family. You would not let us struggle while you have so much." Those words stayed with me. Not because they were cruel, but because they revealed something I had ignored for years. He had always believed my family loved me because of who I was. But in that moment, I started wondering if some of them loved what I could provide. He looked around the Christmas table, at the people I had spent a lifetime caring about, and I felt like I was seeing them for the first time. He did not argue. He did not raise my voice. He simply smiled and said I needed some time to think. Nobody knew what was happening inside my mind. Nobody knew that this quiet moment was the beginning of a decision that would change everything. Because before that Christmas night ended, I finally understood something I should have known long ago. Love and entitlement may look similar at first, but they're not the same thing. After that Christmas dinner, I drove home in silence. The streets were covered with soft winter lights, and every house I passed looked warm and peaceful. But inside my car, I felt a heaviness I could not explain. It was not because Jessica asked for money. Helping people had always been part of who I was. Throughout my life, I had supported family members whenever I could. I paid attention to what people needed. I offered advice, time, and sometimes financial help when someone was going through a difficult season. What hurt was realizing that my family had started seeing my success as something they were entitled to instead of something they could be proud of. When I arrived home, I sat in my quiet living room and thought about how everything had changed in just one evening. A few hours earlier, I had been excited to spend Christmas with the people I loved. Now, I was questioning whether they truly understood me at all. The truth was, my $9 million did not appear overnight. There was a story behind every decision, every sacrifice, and every year I spent building a stable life. But nobody asked about that story. They only focused on the result. Growing up, I had always been different from Jessica. She was outgoing and comfortable asking for what she wanted. She had a strong personality and always knew how to make people listen to her. I admired that about her when we were younger. I was the quieter one. I preferred observing, planning, and working toward my goals without needing attention. For many years, those differences did not matter. I believed we balanced each other. But as we became adults, I started noticing something. Jessica often expected others to adjust their lives around her needs. Whenever she faced a challenge, someone usually stepped in to help. My parents supported her. Relatives offered advice. And because I was responsible and financially stable, I became another person she turned to. At first, I never complained. She was my sister. I believed family meant being there for each other. But slowly, I realized there was a difference between helping someone and carrying their responsibilities for them. I remembered the times I had quietly supported Jessica without expecting anything in return. When she needed help moving into a new home, I was there. When she faced financial stress years earlier, I offered assistance. When she needed someone to listen, I answered her calls. I never kept track because I did those things out of love. But that Christmas night, I wondered if Jessica remembered any of those moments. Or did she only remember that I now had money? A few days after Christmas, Jessica called me. Her voice sounded friendly, almost as if nothing unusual had happened. She asked if I had thought about what she suggested during dinner. I knew exactly what she meant. I took a moment before answering. In the past, I would have immediately tried to avoid conflict. I would have apologized or explained myself. I would have worried about disappointing her. But something inside me had changed. I calmly told her that I needed to make my own decisions about my finances. There was a pause on the phone. Jessica sounded surprised. She said, "I just thought you would want to do something meaningful with your success." That sentence stayed with me because it sounded caring on the surface, but I understood what was underneath. She believed my money should serve everyone else before it served me. I told her that helping family was something I chose to do, not something anyone could demand from me. The conversation ended politely, but I knew something had shifted between us. For the first time, I had set a boundary. I had not been disrespectful. I had not been angry. I had simply protected something I had spent my entire life building. That evening, I opened the documents related to my finances and looked through everything carefully. I thought about the years behind that money. The long work days. The careful decisions. The moments when I chose patience instead of quick rewards. The truth was, the $9 million represented much more than wealth. It represented my independence, my choices, and the life I had created. And for the first time, I understood that protecting what I built did not make me selfish. It meant I finally respected myself. For several days after Christmas, I kept thinking about the conversation with Jessica. I replayed every word in my mind, not because I was angry, but because I was trying to understand how we reached that moment. How did a family gathering become a discussion about what I owed everyone? How did my years of hard work become reduced to a number on a piece of paper? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that the problem was never really the money. The money only revealed feelings and expectations that had been there for a long time. My entire life, I had been known as the dependable one. The person who would figure things out. The person who would quietly help when someone needed support. But somewhere along the way, my kindness became something people expected instead of something they appreciated. To understand why that Christmas hurt so much, I had to look back at the journey that created the life I had built. The $9 million was not a sudden gift or an easy opportunity. It came from decades of patience and discipline. When I was younger, I made choices that were different from many people around me. I did not chase expensive things or try to impress others. While some friends were buying luxury items and constantly upgrading their lifestyles, I focused on creating security. I saved carefully. I learned about investments. I made decisions that were sometimes difficult because I knew I was building something for the future. Nobody saw those quiet choices. Nobody saw the weekends I spent learning new skills. Nobody saw the moments when I wanted to give up but continued because I believed in the path I had chosen. My family only saw the final result. They saw a successful woman, but they did not see all the years of work behind that success. I never blamed them for not knowing every detail. After all, I did not share everything. I was never someone who talked about money or achievements. I believed actions mattered more than announcements. But that Christmas, I realized that staying silent had created another problem. Because I never explained my journey, people filled in the blanks themselves. They assumed I had simply been lucky. They assumed my success came easily. They assumed that because I had more than they did, I should naturally share it. Jessica had always been the person in the family who expressed her feelings openly. When she wanted something, she made it known. When she needed help, she reached out. I used to admire her confidence. But over time, I began noticing that she rarely asked what others needed in return. Our relationship had slowly become one where I gave and she received. The Christmas conversation made me finally acknowledge something I had avoided for years. Loving someone does not mean allowing them to ignore your boundaries. Family does not mean one person should constantly sacrifice while everyone else benefits. A few weeks after Christmas, I met with my financial advisor to review everything. He wanted to make sure my decisions reflected my values, not my emotions. He did not want to make choices because I felt guilty. He wanted to make choices because they were right for me. During that meeting, I made an important decision. He would continue helping people, but only when my heart chose to help. He would no longer allow pressure or expectations to control my generosity. That decision brought me a sense of peace I had not felt in a long time. Later that month, my parents called and asked if they could visit. I knew they wanted to talk about what happened during Christmas. Part of me was nervous because I did not know whether they would understand my perspective. But another part of me felt calm. For the first time, I was not preparing to defend myself. I was simply ready to tell the truth. I had spent years proving that I was someone my family could rely on. Now, I needed to show them that I was also someone who deserved respect. When my parents arrived at my house a few days later, I could tell they already knew the conversation would not be easy. My mother looked nervous, and my father seemed quieter than usual. They walked in, sat down in my living room, and for a few moments, nobody said anything. He offered them coffee, and we talked about ordinary things first. The weather. The holidays. Small details that people often discuss when they are avoiding a difficult conversation. But eventually, my father looked at me and said, "Emily, we need to talk about what happened at Christmas." He nodded because I knew that moment was coming. For years, I would have tried to make everyone comfortable before expressing how I felt. He would have softened my words, changed the subject, or convinced myself that my feelings were not important. But this time was different. He had spent too many years ignoring my own emotions just to keep peace. He wanted to have a respectful conversation, but I also wanted to be honest. My father explained that Jessica believed she was only asking for help. He said she felt that because we were family, sharing my success was the right thing to do. My mother added that they never wanted me to feel pressured. They said they simply thought I could make a difference in Jessica's life. He listened carefully. I understood that they were trying to explain their intentions. But intentions and impact are not always the same. He told them that I had no problem helping people I loved. He had proven that many times. What hurt me was feeling like my choice was being taken away. He told them that there was a difference between someone asking for support and someone deciding they deserved what I had built. The room became quiet. My father looked down for a moment. He think that was the first time he truly understood what I had been feeling. He was not protecting money. He was protecting the meaning behind it. I explained that the $9 million represented years of discipline and personal decisions. It represented every time I chose patience instead of instant satisfaction. It represented every risk I took and every sacrifice I made. It was not just a number. It was my life's work. My mother reached over and held my hand. She said she never realized that their words made me feel like my achievements belonged to everyone except me. Hearing that was emotional because I did not want my parents to feel guilty. He wanted them to understand. There is a difference between making someone feel bad and helping someone see a different perspective. He told them that I loved my family. He wanted to be there for them. But I also needed them to see me as a person, not as a solution to every problem. Later that evening, my father admitted something that surprised me. He said, "I think we always saw you as the strong one. We assumed you did not need anything because you always seemed capable." That sentence made me think. For years, being dependable had been both a gift and a burden. People trusted me because I handled challenges well. But sometimes, they forgot that strong people also have feelings. Strong people also need appreciation. Strong people also deserve to be respected. After my parents left, I sat in my living room thinking about the conversation. It was not perfect. There were no dramatic apologies or instant solutions. Real relationships rarely change that quickly. But something important had happened. For the first time, my family had listened instead of assuming. They had started seeing the person behind the success. A few days later, Jessica called me. He knew this conversation would be different. She was the person who started everything. She was the person whose words made me question my relationship with my family. But I also knew I did not want anger to control me. He wanted clarity. He wanted honesty. And most importantly, I wanted to understand whether Jessica saw me as her sister or simply as someone who could provide what she wanted. When Jessica called me a few days after my conversation with my parents, I knew this was the moment I had been waiting for. Not because I wanted an apology or because I wanted to prove that I was right. He wanted something much simpler. He wanted to know if my sister could finally see me as a person instead of a solution to her problems. I answered the phone and heard Jessica's familiar voice. She sounded calmer than she had during Christmas, but I could still sense that she was trying to understand why I had changed. She started by saying she had been thinking about our conversation. She said she never meant to make me feel used. She explained that when she saw my success, she thought about all the challenges she had been facing and believed I could help. He listened carefully because I wanted to understand her side. Family relationships are complicated because people can hurt you without always realizing the impact of their actions. But understanding someone does not mean ignoring your own feelings. After she finished speaking, I told Jessica something I had never said before. I told her that my biggest disappointment was not that she asked for money. It was that she never asked about my journey. She never asked how I built my life. She never asked what sacrifices I made or what challenges I faced along the way. She only saw the result. Jessica became quiet. I think that was the first time she considered that there was a whole story behind my success. I reminded her of all the years we had shared as sisters. I told her I remembered helping her because I loved her, not because I expected anything in return. But I also told her that love cannot survive when one person feels valued only for what they can provide. There was a long pause before she responded. She admitted that she had become focused on what my money could change for her. She said she had convinced herself that because we were family, my success was something she automatically had a right to share. Hearing her admit that was meaningful because it showed self-awareness. It was not a perfect apology, but it was an honest beginning. I told her I appreciated her being honest with me. He also explained that my decision about my finances would not change. He wanted her to understand that setting boundaries did not mean I stopped caring about her. It meant I was finally learning how to care about myself too. After that conversation, things between Jessica and me slowly started changing. It was not an overnight transformation. We still had difficult moments because years of habits do not disappear after one phone call. But the difference was that we started having real conversations instead of pretending everything was fine. Jessica began asking about my life. She asked about my goals, my interests, and the things I had been working on. Those questions may have seemed small, but they meant a lot to me because they showed she was finally interested in the person behind the money. A few months later, Jessica invited me over for dinner. It was the first time we had spent time together without discussing finances. We talked about childhood memories, family stories, and the experiences that shaped us. At one point, she looked at me and said, "I think I forgot that you were my sister before you were successful." That sentence stayed with me because it was exactly what I needed to hear. I never wanted my family to admire my bank account. I wanted them to appreciate the person I had always been. Looking back, I realized that Christmas was painful because it revealed a truth I had avoided. Sometimes people do not understand your value until you stop allowing them to overlook it. I did not need to punish anyone. I did not need to walk away from everyone I loved. I simply needed to show them that my kindness was a choice, not an obligation. And for the first time in a long time, my family was beginning to understand the difference. After the conversation with Jessica, I felt a sense of peace that I had not experienced in a long time. It was not because everything was suddenly perfect. Family relationships are rarely that simple. Years of misunderstandings, assumptions, and unspoken feelings do not disappear overnight. But for the first time, I felt like there was a real foundation for change. The biggest difference was that I no longer felt like I had to fight to be understood. I had finally spoken honestly about my feelings, and someone had actually listened. A few weeks later, I received a message from my mother asking if I could come over for dinner. She said she wanted the family to spend some time together without any difficult conversations or expectations. At first, I was unsure. The Christmas dinner still felt recent in my mind. I wondered if everyone truly understood what had happened or if they were simply trying to move past it without addressing the deeper issue. But I decided to go because I wanted to believe that people could grow. When I arrived at my parents' home, the atmosphere felt different. There was no tension. No one brought up my finances. No one made comments about what I should or should not do. We simply sat together, shared a meal, and talked like a family. It was a small moment, but after everything that happened, it felt meaningful. During dinner, my father asked me about my plans for the future. The question itself was simple, but the way he asked it was different. Before, his questions often felt like he was trying to understand whether I was making the right choices. This time, he sounded genuinely interested. He told him about some personal goals I had been working toward and some things I wanted to accomplish in the coming years. I listened carefully and asked thoughtful questions. He realized that he was finally seeing me as an individual, not just as the responsible daughter who could always handle everything. Later that evening, my mother and I sat together in the kitchen while everyone else was in the living room. She told me something that stayed with me. She said, "Emily, I think we forgot that strong people also need support." Those words touched me because they described something I had never been able to explain. People often assume that because someone is capable, they do not need kindness. They assume that because someone has succeeded, they must have had an easy journey. But success does not mean a person has never struggled. It does not mean they never felt uncertain or lonely. He told my mother that I did not regret helping my family in the past. He wanted her to understand that my generosity had always come from love. What I needed was for my family to understand that love should be appreciated, not expected. A few days later, Jessica reached out again. This time, she wanted to share something with me. She said she had been thinking about her own behavior and realized that she had focused so much on what my money could provide that she forgot to celebrate what I had achieved. She apologized for making me feel like my success belonged to everyone except me. I appreciated her honesty because it showed that she was beginning to understand the difference between support and entitlement. From that point forward, our relationship slowly became healthier. Jessica did not suddenly become a completely different person, and I did not expect her to. Change happens through consistent actions, not just words. But I noticed small differences. She asked about my life more often. She showed interest in my experiences. She stopped bringing conversations back to money. Those small changes meant more to me than any grand apology. Looking back, I realized that the most important thing I gained from that difficult Christmas was not a stronger financial boundary. It was a clearer understanding of myself. For years, I thought being a good family member meant always saying yes. I thought love meant never disappointing anyone. But I learned that real love also requires honesty. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for a relationship is to create a boundary that allows respect to grow. I still loved my family. I still wanted them in my life. But no, I understood that being loved should never require me to give away pieces of myself to prove my worth. Months after that Christmas dinner, I started noticing something I never expected. My family was not just changing the way they treated me. It was changing the way I saw myself. For years, I had measured my value by how useful I could be to others. I believed that being a good daughter meant always being available, always being understanding, and always putting everyone else first. I thought saying no would make people think I was selfish. But after everything that happened, I began to understand that protecting my own peace was not selfish. It was necessary. One afternoon, I was sitting in my home office reviewing some old documents when I found a notebook I had kept many years earlier. Inside there were notes about my goals, my plans, and the reasons behind the choices I had made. Reading those pages brought back memories of a younger version of myself who had dreams but also many doubts. I remembered the years when I worked quietly because I wanted to create a secure future. I remembered the moments when people questioned my decisions because they did not understand what I was building. Looking back, I felt proud of that younger woman. She had continued moving forward even when nobody was watching. That realization was important because I finally understood something. My success did not begin when I reached $9 million. It began years earlier when I decided to believe in myself. A few weeks later, my family gathered again for a birthday celebration. This time, Everything felt different. He walked into the room without wondering what people thought of me. He was not waiting for approval. He was simply happy to spend time with the people I loved. Jessica greeted me warmly, and I noticed how much our relationship had changed. She asked about my interests, my plans, and the things that made me happy outside of my finances. Those questions may have seemed ordinary, but they meant a lot because they showed me that she was finally seeing me as her sister again. During the celebration, my father shared a story from when I was younger. It talked about how I had always been the person who helped others. He said he used to think my independence meant I did not need anyone. But now he understood that independence and needing support could exist together. That conversation stayed with me because it showed how much our family had learned. We had all been looking at each other through incomplete stories. My family saw my success but not my struggles. He saw their expectations but not always their intentions. The difference was that we were finally willing to listen. Later that evening, Jessica and I sat outside together. She told me she had been thinking about how our relationship had changed over the years. She admitted that she had become comfortable receiving help from me because she always believed I would be there. She said she never stopped to consider how much pressure that placed on me. He told her that I never wanted her to feel guilty about the past. He wanted us to move forward with a better understanding of each other. He explained that I still wanted to help the people I love, but I wanted that help to come from a place of choice, not expectation. Jessica nodded and said she finally understood the difference. That conversation felt like a turning point. Not because everything became perfect, but because we were no longer pretending. We were building a relationship based on honesty instead of assumptions. Over the next few months, I noticed more changes. My family stopped discussing my money and started discussing my life. They asked about my opinions. They wanted to hear my stories. They became interested in the person behind the success. That was something I had wanted all along. I never needed them to admire my financial situation. I needed them to recognize the person who had spent years working hard, caring deeply, and trying to do the right thing. The experience taught me that sometimes people only change when they realize they might lose something valuable. But the most important lesson was that I had changed before they did. I had learned to respect myself. I had learned that love should not require constant sacrifice. And I had learned that setting boundaries did not push my family away. Instead, it created space for a healthier relationship to grow. As time passed, I realized that the biggest change in my family was not about money at all. It was about understanding. For many years, we had all been living with assumptions about each other. My family assumed that because I was successful, I did not need support. He assumed that because they needed me, I had to always say yes. Both sides were missing something important. We were forgetting that behind every role in a family is a real person with feelings, dreams, and limits. After everything that happened, I began creating a different kind of relationship with the people I loved. He was no longer trying to earn my place in the family. He was no longer trying to prove that I deserved respect. He simply wanted to be present as myself. One of the biggest changes happened with Jessica. Before, most of our conversations were focused on what she needed. She would call when she had a problem or when she wanted advice. He was always happy to listen because I loved my sister. But after Christmas, our conversations became more balanced. She started asking about my experiences, my thoughts, and my goals. She became interested in the parts of my life she had never taken the time to understand. One day, Jessica visited me at my home. We sat in the kitchen drinking coffee and talking about our childhood. We laughed about old memories and remembered the times when we were younger. Then she became quiet and said something that surprised me. She told me that she had spent a lot of time thinking about how she viewed me. She admitted that she had always seen me as the responsible sister who could handle everything. Because of that, she never considered that I might also need appreciation and understanding. Hearing that meant a lot because it showed that she was finally looking beyond my achievements. She was seeing me as a person. He told her that I also had things to learn. He had spent years hiding my struggles because I wanted everyone to believe I was strong. He rarely shared my worries because I did not want anyone to think I was failing. In some ways, I had helped create the image that I never needed anything from anyone. That conversation helped both of us understand each other better. We realized that a healthy relationship is not built on one person always giving and another person always receiving. It is built on respect, honesty, and care from both sides. My relationship with my parents changed too. My father became more open about his feelings. He started sharing stories from his own life and the pressures he had experienced when he was younger. He began seeing him differently. He realized that some of his expectations came from his own fears and experiences. That did not excuse the moments when I felt misunderstood, but it helped me understand where he was coming from. Understanding someone does not mean accepting everything they do. It means seeing the whole picture. My mother also became more aware of the importance of boundaries. She stopped asking questions about what I planned to do with my money and started asking about what made me happy. That simple change showed me how much our relationship had grown. Looking back, I realized that I had spent years protecting my family from disappointment while forgetting to protect myself from exhaustion. I thought being loving meant always being available. But I learned that true love allows people to be honest with each other. It allows people to say no without fear. It allows people to have their own dreams and responsibilities. The $9 million that caused so much tension was never the most valuable thing I had. The most valuable thing was the lesson I gained from that experience. I learned who truly wanted to know me. I learned how to create healthier relationships. And most importantly, I learned that my worth was never connected to what I could give someone else. It was connected to who I had always been. As another Christmas approached, I found myself thinking about the previous year. The same holiday that once revealed the hardest truth about my family had also become the beginning of a better chapter. This time, I would not walk into the room wondering what people expected from me. I would walk in knowing that I was valued for more than what I owned. I was valued for who I was. The following Christmas arrived with a feeling I never expected. 1 year earlier, I had walked into my sister's home believing I was surrounded by people who understood me. By the end of that night, I questioned whether they saw me at all. But standing in that same family home a year later, everything felt different. The decorations were familiar. The laughter sounded the same. The people around the table were the same. But the relationships had changed because we had all learned something important. We had learned that family is not built on what someone can provide. It is built on love, respect, and the willingness to truly see each other. When I arrived that Christmas, Jessica greeted me with a genuine smile. There was no awkward conversation about money. There were no expectations. She simply hugged me and told me she was happy I was there. That small moment meant more than she probably realized. For a long time, I had wondered if my sister only valued what I could do for her. But now I understood that people can make mistakes and still grow. Jessica had taken responsibility for her actions, and that mattered. During dinner, my father raised a glass and said something that surprised everyone. He said he was grateful for the lessons our family had learned that year. He talked about how easy it was to focus on what people have instead of who they are. He admitted that he had spent years seeing me as the strong one who never needed help. But he realized that being capable did not mean I did not deserve support and appreciation. Hearing those words brought a quiet sense of peace. He did not need a dramatic apology. He did not need everyone to repeat that they were wrong. He simply needed them to understand. After dinner, Jessica and I stepped outside for a few minutes. The winter air was cold, but the moment felt warm. She told me she was proud of the way I handled everything. She said that if she had been in my position, she might have reacted differently. He smiled and told her that I had not always been this calm. The truth was, I had spent many years trying to keep everyone happy. He had avoided difficult conversations because I was afraid that setting boundaries would create distance. But I learned that avoiding honesty does not protect relationships. Sometimes, it slowly damages them. Jessica agreed. She said that she had learned something too. She had learned that loving someone does not mean assuming you are entitled to their choices. Support is meaningful only when it is freely given. Those words stayed with me because they represented the change I had hoped for. Not perfection. Not a completely different family. Just a family that understood each other better. Looking back at the journey, I realized the $9 million was never the real story. The money was simply the thing that revealed what had been hidden beneath the surface. It showed me where expectations had replaced appreciation. It showed me where I had been giving too much without allowing myself to be understood. But it also created an opportunity for growth. It gave my family a chance to recognize the person behind the success. Today, I still enjoy helping the people I love. I still believe kindness matters. I still believe family is important. But I also understand that generosity means more when it comes from freedom instead of pressure. I no longer help because I am afraid of disappointing people. I help because I genuinely choose to. That difference changed my entire life. The greatest lesson I learned was not about money. It was about self-respect. For years, I believed being a good family member meant putting everyone else first. Now I know that a healthy relationship allows everyone to have a voice. Everyone deserves to be valued. Everyone deserves to be seen. That Christmas changed my family, but it also changed me. I stopped measuring my worth by how much I could give. I stopped believing that my success needed to be justified. I finally understood that I was valuable before anyone knew about my achievements. De $9. Million was something I earned, but the confidence, peace, and respect I found along the way were worth far more. And that was the gift I never expected to receive.